This episode of the Burnout Recovery Podcast is brought to you by MEGA, your medical indemnity partner. Whether you're starting out in your career or have decades of experience, MEGA helps you thrive with support that goes beyond insurance. Enjoy travel benefits like complimentary travel insurance and Qantas points on your membership, plus education, medico-legal support, access to career coaching and wellbeing resources. Visit mega.com.au to learn more. Insurance issued by Medical Insurance Australia, which has not taken into account your objectives or situation. Before you make any decisions about our policies, please read our PDS and consider your needs. Call us for a copy or visit mega.com.au.
Welcome to the Burnout Recovery Podcast, a guiding resource dedicated to healthcare professionals on their journey to overcoming burnout. Spearheaded by Dr. Joe Braid, a certified professional coach and rehabilitation physician.
Hello and welcome back to the Burnout Recovery Podcast. I'm Dr. Joe Braid, your host, a rehabilitation physician and expert in clinician wellbeing. And this is episode number 195. If this is your first time listening, I'm wishing you a very warm welcome. Today, we're talking about something that sits underneath almost every leadership conversation I have, whether that's in a coaching session, a workshop, or a keynote. And it's this: your team's well-being starts with yours. It's not as a nice to have, not as something you get to once the roster's sorted and the inbox is under control, but as the actual starting point. Leaders need to be well to lead well. I learned that phrase when I was in Italy in May, and I love it and have used it on repeat since. And today I want to show you what it actually looks like in practice, because it's not about being endlessly calm or having it all figured out. It's about something much more specific than that. So I want to start with a personal story around a stretch of ward cover I had a while back, because I think it illustrates this better than if I just told you the theory first. We had a patient coming onto the ward with a complex medical history, so very common these days. There was genuine uncertainty attached to it. The staff didn't know how the patient might engage with rehab, what kind of progress we'd see, and what the outcome would actually look like. That kind of uncertainty has a way of moving through a team before the patient has even arrived in the ward. You could feel it, and the staff were anticipating a hard few weeks coming up. And I remember thinking, as the medical lead in that situation, and as someone who does all this well-being work for a living, I need to be on top of my game here. Not perfect, but on top of my game. So in the lead up, I made sure my coaching sessions were in the diary. I paid attention to my sleep routine, not flawlessly, I'll be honest. It's never 100% for me, but I was really intentional about it. I made time for connection with my family. I kept movement in, even in small rather than large doses. Nothing dramatic, but the fundamentals, and they were protected. Here's the thing I want to be really clear about. I certainly could not change how the staff were feeling about that patient admission. Their anticipation, their nerves, their bracing for a difficult few weeks. That wasn't mine to fix, and it wasn't mine to talk them out of. What I could do was arrive as my best self, present, human, relatable, someone who'd actually supported themselves enough to have something steady to offer, rather than turning up already running on empty and adding my own depletion to a ward that was already anticipating a hard road. And the weeks that followed went well. There were no significant issues. Now, I'm not saying my sleep routine single-handedly prevented any incidents happening on the ward. That's not how this works, and I want to be careful about that. But I do know the version of me who shows up depleted is a different leader. Less patient, less able to read the room, less capable of being the calm point in a system that is bracing for uncertainty. And that is the whole point of this podcast episode. You cannot control what your team feels, but you have enormous influence over what you bring into the room. So why does this actually matter beyond, well, it's nice if the boss is in a good mood? Let's look at the research. There's a well-established concept in organizational psychology called emotional contagion, the tendency for people to unconsciously mirror the emotional states of those around them, especially those in positions of authority. And leaders carry disproportionate weight here. Dr. Sigal Barsard's research at Wharton on emotional contagion in work groups found that a leader's mood spreads through a team within minutes, and it shapes group cooperation, conflict, and even perceived performance, regardless of what's actually being said in the room. Think about that. Your nervous system is doing some of the talking before you've said a word. Then there is the neuroscience of uncertainty itself, which is relevant given how much of this comes up for the people I work with. Dr. Alex Korb's research on the brain's response to uncertainty shows that ambiguous situations activate the amygdala in a similar way to actual threat. So the amygdala is an older part of our brain which is responsible for the fight-flight response. And so a calm, regulated presence nearby can measurably downregulate that threat response in others. And this you might know of as co-regulation. It's well documented in parent-child research, and it holds up in team and clinical settings too. Your regulated nervous system isn't just pleasant to be around. It is doing something physiological for the people near you. And then there's Dr. Christina Maslach's foundational burnout research, which listeners of this podcast will know I come back to often. One of her 6 organizational drivers of burnout is a lack of community, the sense of being met by people who see you and are actually present with you, not just going through the motions. A depleted leader, even an unintentionally depleted one, quietly erodes that sense of community because presence is one of the first things to go when you're running on empty. So let's put those together. Your mood is contagious. Your regulation helps others regulate themselves under uncertainty. And your presence, or absence of it, shapes whether your team experiences community or isolation. So that's not soft leadership language. That is clinical outcomes, staff retention, and psychological safety built or eroded one shift at a time. So, what do you actually do with this? Let's bring it into the 4 pillars because this is where it gets practical. Mindset. Before a known period of uncertainty, a difficult admission, a restructure, a hard roster stretch, ask yourself one question in advance. What does my team need me to bring into the room this week? Not what do I need to fix, but what do I need to bring? And that's a subtle but important shift because it moves you from problem-solving mode into presence mode. And presence is usually what's actually needed first. Support. This is where it gets uncomfortable for a lot of leaders because we're trained to be the support, not to need it. But you cannot pour from an empty cup, and that's not a throwaway line. It is the mechanism. Having your own support in place before you need it. That might be a supervision session, a coaching relationship, a peer that you could be honest with. Mine was booked coaching sessions in the diary, not squeezed in if I had time. Protected. Movement. When you notice your own stress rising in anticipation of something hard at work, use movement to regulate before you walk onto the ward. into the meeting or into the room. It doesn't need to be a session at the gym. It can be a walk from the car park done with intention rather than being on your phone or sending a last-minute message. Your nervous system needs a chance to reset before you become the nervous system that other people are borrowing from, that emotional contagion there. Sleep. I want to be honest here because I was not perfect ever with this during that stretch of ward cover, and I don't think perfection is the bar. The bar is intention. Protecting what you can, when you can, especially heading into a period you know will be demanding. Sleep isn't a reward for getting everything done. It's the foundation your presence is built on. Here's the tool I want to leave you with specifically for uncertainty, because this comes up constantly in my workshops and coaching. When you're heading into a genuinely uncertain situation with your team, try naming the uncertainty out loud rather than performing false confidence. Something like, we don't know exactly how this is going to go, and we're going to take it one day at a time together. That's not weakness. That is leadership modeling honesty, which is far more regulating for a team than forced positivity ever is. Let's finish up with a few reflection questions. Where in your leadership are you currently running on empty and hoping no one notices? What would it look like to protect your own well-being before a known period of uncertainty or difficulty at work, rather than after you're already depleted? And who or what is currently supporting you the way you support everyone else? Here's your action step for this week. Choose one upcoming period of uncertainty at work, and before it starts, put one support in place for yourself. A session booked, a walk protected, an early night non-negotiable. Just one thing. If this episode landed for you, I'd love you to share it with a colleague in a leadership role, someone who might need permission to hear that looking after themselves isn't separate from looking after their team. It's the actual foundation of it. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Burnout Recovery Doctor and on LinkedIn as Dr. Joe Braid. If you're not already getting my weekly newsletter, The Sunday Long Game, that's where I go deeper on all of this, and you can subscribe at drjoebraid.com/subscribe. If boundaries are something you're working on, I have just released No is a Full Sentence, 12 scripts for clinicians with an upgrade available with a video masterclass. You'll find both of them at drjoebraid.com/store. Thanks so much for listening. And remember, be human first. Everything else will follow. Thanks for listening. Take care. Ready to take the next step in your burnout recovery journey? Visit drjoebraid.com for free resources, all 150 plus podcast episodes, and information about my keynote speaking. Links are in the show notes. Your well-being matters. Protect the asset that is you. Be your best you. Rely on MEGA for your protection and support, serving doctors for over 125 years through insurance, education, medical legal advice, and member benefits designed to help you thrive and succeed. Insurance issued by Medical Insurance Australia, which has not taken into account your objectives or situation. Before you make any decisions about our policies, please read our PDS and consider your needs. Call us for a copy or visit mega.com.au.